That the path of that eclipse covers like, what'd you say, 8 places that are called Nineveh. So
There,
and
I
you want to
believe.
see where I'm going with this. There's, we have Georgia here, but there's Georgia over there. We have New England here. We have, there's places get called places that aren't the original places. That kind of sound like a cat in the hat type of line, but you get what I'm trying to say. There is always a chance that what we call Ethiopia today might not have been what you called Ethiopia before. Um, that's all I can
For
say to
people
that.
say that Ethiopia today isn't what Ethiopia once was, and places do change, borders change, um,
Yeah,
you know, things get called different names.
right.
Um, so that is true, but it's always really interesting me. I believe it's underground now as well.
Well, you
Now,
do you know the verse offhand? Because I can try to search it, but I don't know the wording of why we think it's underground. Do you remember?
I believe it's underground because of Enoch, where he's going into Earth, into Sheol, and everything else.
Right.
It also has an angel garden.
Ezekiel 31:18. To whom art thou thus like in the glory and in greatness among the trees of Eden? Yet thou shalt be brought down with the trees of Eden unto the nether parts of the earth. Um,
Yeah,
so the land was desolate and has become like the Garden of Eden, and the waste and desolate ruined cities are become fenced and inhabited. So that's in Ezekiel. That's where I get the place. You know, that's uh that's where I get the inspiration that it has been swallowed up from the earth. Everybody and their grandmas tried to find Eden. Discovery Channel, History Channel, True TV. Everybody's tried to find the Garden of Eden.
I
And
will say, I will say, I do recommend everybody watch the God Culture, the Eden series, and the where it talks about Havala, and he does make a lot of good points. That whole region in the Philippines, that, and also if you're interested in the location of Eden, I know Rob Skiba did the Yahuwah Triangle
oh, I
series.
forgot about that. Whoa, that was
Yeah,
forever
that
ago.
was quite a while ago. That was an interesting series. So there's a few people that have perspectives on it out there, and there is people that have looked for it that are actually Christian people um, that are just doing the best they can to try and trace it down. But just for two different perspectives, I do recommend the God Culture. What was that? What was the exact title of that series?
I typed in Eden series. I don't know if you saw my screen, and I got quite a few videos that showed up. So the Eden
Okay, well
series.
that's yeah. As long as we showed it, I just want to give credit for that or whatever. I know I got a smile when I said the Philippines earlier, but he did really do a lot of good research. So yeah, the God Culture. I know he did the Rivers of Eden. There's uh, the Philippines. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was called. I know me and you were sending videos back and forth when that first came out, and we were watching. I know I probably watched like 16 or 17 out of like 50 that's in that series.
Yeah.
Maybe I watched a little more than that, but that's a good series. And the Yuhua Triangle is a five-parter. I think each one of those is about an hour and a half long. So it takes up quite a bit of time, but there's a lot of good info in both of those, and you'll definitely up your Bible knowledge just by watching both of those
Oh, yeah.
series.
Worst case scenario, you learn something. I mean, there's you.
You'll definitely learn something. I know I've rewatched both like several of both of those series, several episodes of both of those series, and I pick up on something new every time, or at
Yeah.
least I can uh, find reference points or understanding. So like for example, like what we're talking about, let's go over it. And it says right here. Uh, It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and that's in verse 11 in chapter 2 of Genesis.
Right.
And the gold of that land is good. All right, so this is Moses talking in his time. It's almost like he understood that the gold is still good, and it talks about bdellium and onyx stones are there. So it gives examples. of different minerals that would be in that region, and then the gold was good, so it was super high quality gold. Okay,
Right.
uh, so you're looking for different resources like that in that area. So that's something you can look for if you're looking for Eden. You look for the rivers. There's been a lot of work. A lot of people think that Eden was in Ethiopia. I've heard that before. I've heard the Arabian Peninsula, anywhere over there. Um, you know, I believe Skiba was saying that it was in Jerusalem.
Yeah, I'm not against that at all, personally. Not
And
against that at all.
yeah, so there's a lot of different people that they ask this question, and I didn't want to go by the description of Eden without at least touching on where is the Garden of Eden, because that's
You got to. Yeah, you got
everybody
to.
always wonders that, or if you're a curious person, it's like I wonder where that was. So I mean, there's a lot of research out there on it. I think the top three is where people think it is right now is typically either the Philippines, in Jerusalem, or the Arabian Peninsula. Um, typically,
Dude, they present some good cases there. I mean, it's
Sinai is like right there. Right on Sinai, I've seen somebody talk about, and that's that could be.
it's hard to say, man. I mean, there's certain things that I'll tell you what, if God hides it, man, it's gonna be a hard time trying to find it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And even at that, if the enemy hides it, you're still gonna do some work trying to find it. You know?
yeah, just finding where it was on the earth is now. Also, when you're going through these descriptions and where it could be, understand that there was a huge and there's been several huge catastrophes on Earth, but you have the flood where the fountains of the deep burst forth and everything that breathed air on Earth died.
Right.
Okay, everything that walked on the earth. Let me stress that because the Bible stresses that everything that walked on and breathed air, so it had to be on the surface of the earth and breathed air, died.
Right. That would have been, excuse me,
Changed.
an amazing effect on topography, water, mountains, land, and
Yes. I
please.
mean, just look at some of the stuff the catastrophists like Randall Carlson have talked about, where they're showing pictures of the desert and these huge like ripples in the desert where all this water ran off. And we're talking about on the desert. You can see a lot of that type of stuff around the Rishad structure, the Eye of the Sahara, that Corsetti always talks about too. Are you showing? Is that the ripples of the desert where the water ran off?
Yeah. Where they found what is it, whale bones or whale teeth or whatever they found out there.
And you find like clams and stuff on Everest. I mean, yeah, the whole place was covered, and it really happened.
Right.
And it may not have been the only huge flood like that. I mean, like that, I think that was probably the biggest one. But there were floods before and after that. There's signs of we talked about the mud flood a little bit, just kind of skimming on that. But there's been catastrophes all over the place that have changed the way the way the world looks. And it talks about in the Bible also that in the time of Peleg, the earth was separated.
Yeah.
So there may be more than what a lot of people think to the Pangea thing, and there's some evidence of a worldwide river system, and then you have the flood happening. You have the earth splitting forward and the water to the deep coming up. It changed a lot of things, and then it seems like in the time of Peleg, it changed even more.
Right.
So when you're looking at this in Genesis, and you're looking at especially in the descriptions in Enoch, you got to understand that's before the flood happened. So things have changed a little bit. You're not going to be able to track things down. The best we can do is guess. And also, I think the God culture and Skew had pretty good guesses, and I've seen other people have good guesses, but those two I recommend.
Yeah, the Yahuwah Triangle, man, that's been out for years. I've probably gone through it like 3 or 4 times in the past 6 or 7 years. Highly recommend. And like I said, worst comes to worst, man, you're gonna learn something. Um, but yeah, you got to. I mean, if you're gonna read Genesis 2, you got to go down the uh, the rabbit hole of Eden. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got an opinion on where Eden was. You know what I'm saying? It's like who's better, Biggie or Tupac? You know, where's Garden of Eden at? Yeah, everybody's got an opinion on the matter. You know, so um, where are we at here? We were talking about verse 16. He can eat of every tree of the garden. Verse 17, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die.
Now, hold on 1 second. Did Adam die when he ate the fruit?
Are you asking me or is that rhetorical?
I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean he did, man. Yeah, death entered into the world when that happened. He became a finite creature the moment that happened. So yeah, I think he did die, and no, he didn't, hit the dirt and die the way that Abel did, or the way that you and I are going to. But yeah, in a lot of ways, he did die.
Well, he eventually died.
Yeah, I mean, he became a creature who was finite in that moment in time. Right. As soon as they got there, yeah, and again, a day with the Lord is 1,000 years. Adam didn't live 1,000 years, so if you want to say that in that day he died, I think that's a fair argument.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that just leads to believe that we're created to die. Not really. You know what I mean? The only reason that I believe that they were locked, sent out of the garden is so that they didn't, after they had their fallen bodies, they didn't eat from the tree of life and live forever as a fallen creature. But
thank God we didn't. That would have been horrible.
Something changed on that sin. I also would like to point out here is that where is Eve at when God's telling him this?
She ain't there, and I'm so glad you said that because I
want to point this out when he's telling him, because and I want to tell you, I hear this a lot. We have people in our family, all right, and I'm a big Cat Williams fan myself, but he talks about the tree is the fruit is the genitals and all this type of stuff. When he's telling him to not eat of the tree, Eve doesn't exist yet.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've never heard anyone else say that except for me. I'm just going to put that out there.
Eve does not exist yet. Okay. Eve doesn't exist, I believe, until like the next verse or two. So when he's telling him not to eat of the tree, he is telling him to not eat of the tree. Doesn't say apple, but you don't eat of whatever comes off that tree.
Yeah, now, and I'd like to point out that she is aware of the rule. We'll get that in Genesis 3. She does tell the serpent, no, we're not supposed to eat of this tree. But in my humble opinion, and it's just an opinion, this is no different than Adam here is like Moses on the mount receiving the word of the law directly from the voice of God. But I personally am of the belief, and you might be different, that Eve receives this law from Adam. That she learned that, no, that tree, we don't touch that tree.
That's the structure that's always set forth in the Bible, is that the man is the head of the household and responsible to the household to God. God demand man to woman, woman to children. Right. That's how it's always been set up, and that's why you see the problems we have in our social culture today is because that's been upset. And that's the natural order of things, like it or not. That's just the way it was set up. So that would make sense that that's how that went. Not saying that God didn't walk with Eve and talk with Eve too. I don't know. I know he did with Adam. I assume that he did with her as well. But and I'm not trying to diminish Eve, but if that was given down like that, there's precedence in the scriptures where that's how it's supposed to be set up. So
yeah, I don't put so much. I mean, I don't know, man. And I'm not God. I'm not here to judge. It's not my job. Eve goofed, but I've goofed too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I
no,
don't.
no, no. I'm not
Oh, I'm
putting
not
it
putting that
down.
on.
I'm
Yeah, I'm not
just
saying that.
saying but God giving the commandment to Adam here before Eve, and then Adam delivering it to Eve. That that is in the chain of command of how
Yeah,
everything is
yeah,
supposed to work.
agreed.
So yeah, and so as far as the communication goes, yeah, Eve screwed up big time.
Sure.
Uh, but I'm so imperfect. I'm not holding it against her. Yeah, I
No.
wish she wouldn't have. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not trying to demean her or put her down for
Oh
it.
yeah. No.
It happened. But what I'm saying is in the communication chain, yeah, that would make sense between from
Agreed.
Adam to Eve.
There is no place that I'm aware of. You might know one that I don't. There is no place that I'm aware of that says that Eve learned it from God or that she learned it from Adam. But just taking the evidence we have here, and again, you are the only person I've ever heard other than myself point this out, and I'm so glad you did. She's not here when the commandment is originally given
I
to
don't
Adam.
even think we've talked about this before, man. But I did want to point that out because I thought it before reading it. Like, hey, man, you know, for like everybody that wants to say like the tree is supposed to be sexual and everything else. And I get where they're coming from.
I
Like
do
the
too.
curses later, they're sexual in nature when it's talking to Eve. It has to do with the menstrual cycle and childbirth and all this type of stuff.
Right.
I hear you. I understand that and I get that. But there you have some problems when you come to the serpent seed theory, namely Genesis 4:1. Okay, because that distinctly says that Adam laid with his wife, which means they had sex, and she conceived of Cain. So
Right.
no targum you can do can change that. Like nothing you can bring. That's what it says. Now, if it's not, I understand that the curses are sexual in nature for Eve, but also when he's given the commandment about the tree, which was the sin that happened, the knowledge of good and evil. The sin that happened was eating of that tree. Eve was not even here. She was not even created yet.
Can we segue from that? Because I think this is a really good place to read verse 18, where it says, "And the Lord God said, It is not good that man should be alone, and I will make him a helpmeet for him." So we have Adam being born first, and then Eve coming later. Um, we have he puts a deep sleep on him, and he takes one of his ribs. And most people are pretty aware of all this. Um, I'll tell you what. Can we read 18 through 21, and then we can go back to chapter
I'll
1 in
tell you what, bro.
Genesis?
Let's. You want to just finish it out? Let's go ahead and just finish it out because it only goes to 25 anyway.
Yeah, sounds good. Because I'd really like to look at the differences between 1 and 2. So here we are in 18. It is not good that man should be alone. Amen to that. And I will make him a helpmeet. And out of the ground, the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air. All right, let's just keep that in mind. Out of the ground, God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. Here we are again, God creating something and giving someone else dominion over it and letting them have it. So that example is just repetitive. And Adam gave names to all cattle and to the fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helpmeet for him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he woman and brought her unto the man. That's so neat. That's just I don't know, man. There's something about that. I mean, and I'm a man, and it was just like, dude, it's just so cool. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed." Um, Dude, I don't know. There's something so romantic and beautiful. It's just so neat. I mean, if you've ever loved a woman, golly, what a helpmeet they can be. Um, Real quick though, I know I said I want to go to chapter 1, but in this world that was so perfect, in this world that we're talking about was uncorrupted with sin, why is it, in your opinion, that it is not good that man should be alone? Do you think he was still being sad? Do you think he had issues? Maybe he was looking at that tree of knowledge and good and evil. Why was it not good for him to be alone, do you think?
Well, I'm in the minority in this, and I think it's becoming more popular. And I'm not 100% sold, but I lean more towards that Adam and Eve were created after the original creation account speaks of man and woman being created. Um, I don't know why. I don't even know that Adam would know of the other people being in the garden.
Mhm.
It's a good question. It's a
I
good
mean,
question.
here's
I
one.
would think maybe Adam would see that other people were multiplying, and he would want somebody, with him as well.
I think every man wants an offspring. That's for sure.
Well,
Maybe not everybody, but but if let's in theory here, I know we're kind of skipping ahead to Genesis 3 a little bit, but most people know the story. If you're watching this video, you probably know the story. Is that there is still you want to call it temptation, you want to call it seduction, beguiling, whatever you want to call it, there was still the choice and the option to eat the fruit. And so I think it's safe to make the assumption that even in these perfected bodies, temptation was still a thing, free will was still a thing. And so that means that there's a chance that emotion was still a thing. And I think there's a chance that in this state, Adam may have even been experiencing loneliness, I don't know. I'm just,
I may have a better answer than my original thought.
Go ahead.
Just thinking about it, if we're gonna think about the nature of God, let's use what we know.
Sure.
Okay. God, I don't believe needs any of us to exist, but still, I don't believe he made us in his image, and he didn't want to be alone, so he created. So he
Wow.
has, think about that. So
Good answer.
if we're made in his image, and he, didn't want to be alone and created to have, more, to have a relationship with everybody else, then it would probably be natural for Adam to, crave to have someone to talk to or someone to be around. And most people think about solitary confinement. It's not in our nature to just be alone. People go crazy.
Oh yeah. No, we saw that in 2020, man. The suicide through the roof.
If God felt the need to create and to have intelligent beings around and to interact with them and to interact, then he's Adam's made in his image. I mean, direct creation of God.
You're right.
Then, wouldn't
You're
that
right.
stand the reason that he would have the same sensibilities as his creator, especially more so as he being a direct creation.
Dude, yeah, that's a really good point. One thing I noticed just now when we were reading this, something I never really, I never really thought about before. I never really saw it, but when he brings all these creatures before Adam, he just says, and he brought him unto Adam to see, just to see. I just want to see what he calls them. It doesn't seem like Adam was commanded give all these animals a name. He brought them up to him just to see what he would do with them. Yeah, this is really neat little one word right that gives us an insight into God's personality and the way he interacts with humans. I just want to see what he does. Let's just see what he calls them. And I think you're right on what you're saying. We're seeing these reflections of God's personality that are interwoven into our creation. That comment I made earlier about most
think
people.
about this also too. Like Adam had never talked with anybody else but God.
True.
And you just in your everyday life, if you spend time with one person, even though you've had a bunch of interactions, you spend time with one person all the time, you'll start to do little things that favor that person. You pick up on it, you rub off on each other.
True.
You know what I mean? Adam had no other outside influences. All he had talked to was God.
Wow.
He didn't have Eve for a while. You know what I mean?
That's a good
So
point.
there's no other influence on him but God. So and he was also made in his image. He breathed life into him. think about, Jesus, when he breathed on the disciples after he resurrected,
Right.
he told them he gave them power to forgive sins.
Jeez.
God breathed his spirit on you. It's a powerful thing. So I assume when God brought the animals before Adam, he just wanted to see how close, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to see what he's going to call these, because I call that a lion. I wonder what he's going to call that.
That's a good point,
You
man.
know what I mean?
That's
Like, I
yeah,
thought, lion
that's
sounds
cool.
good for that. What about you, Adam? Lion. Well, yep, yep. Just about right. That's my boy. It's just,
Pretty
he's
cool.
a direct creation of God.
That's a neat, yeah.
Uh,
I've never thought about that.
and
That
he had never been around anybody but God. So, I
right.
mean, maybe God, when he says he wants to see it, is like, well, he's never been around anybody but me. Let's see, how much he thinks like me. I made him in my image to see. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about my son earlier going to the gym. I want to see what he can do and see what he thinks
Yeah.
about this. I want to say something to him and see what he thinks. I want to play him this album that I used to like when I was his age and see what he thinks about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I want to see what he's like. So God is the Father. It's reference Father all the time. He wants to see what his son thinks, see how much he's like him, see what So yeah, I imagine so.
That's cool,
Yeah,
man. That's cool.
yeah.
You can provide some insight to that I don't have any children yet, and so that's really neat that you're able to. That's really really cool. Actually, I never quite thought about that. I suppose you could argue if somebody's watching this, well, the serpent's in the garden too. Maybe he had been around other people, but that's not his dad. You know what I'm saying? They didn't breathe life into him the way that you're talking about. They didn't instruct him and give him guidance on things the way that God did. And so I think you've actually made a
Well,
really
even
solid
so,
point.
those nations would be elsewhere from Eden. There was as soon as they sinned, they were cast out of Eden. Eden is a sinless place.
Yeah.
Um, that was like a set apart garden for God. Now I don't know for sure that there were other people there. There verses that we're going to get into going down the line would lead me to believe that that's the case.
Right.
Uh, and we'll save that for that because a lot of it doesn't make sense unless the creation of day 6 is a separate man and woman that are told to be fruitful and multiply, and then Adam being created, him going through the garden, being told about the tree, and then Eve being created. It seems like a different instance of creation, like
Are you
Adam.
ready to break that down? And let's look at some of the differences between right here in Genesis 2. We have that the cattle and the beasts and everything, they're all brought up from the ground, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure I've got that correctly. And out of the ground, God formed every beast of the field and fowl of the air and whatnot. And we can go back into Genesis 1 and really see the differences there, because this, to me, this changed everything. Changed
Let
everything.
me just say this: we're formed from the ground, and think about how long ago this was. We are, and now we know this. We're carbon-based life forms.
Mm,
Okay, this is what we were based on. So
right.
just think about that. As we go through this chapter by chapter, there are several things in these books that are very in the Old Testament that are verified. Thousands of years old. Over 1,000 years old. So, well over thousands of years old. So we'll go through here. There's several things that are said in here that make sense in a modern perspective of what we're discovering scientifically that could only come from God. That could only come from knowledge that was imparted by the Holy Spirit. You know what I
I
mean?
think that's worth bringing up because there's a
We'll see
movement
it
going
all.
on that I'm
You'll
sure
see it all over, man. You'll see it all over.
I'm sure you're aware of the movement of we were created from stardust. I'm sure you're aware of that. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm sure there are people that have percentages of star DNA in them, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm picking up, putting down the. Uh, this is fun right here in Genesis
From
1.
stars, yeah. What's that?
This is fun right here in Genesis 1. I didn't even think about this last week when we were looking at this together. In Genesis 1, we've got same thing you see in Genesis 2. that the earth brings forth grass and herb and seed and whatnot. I just think it's interesting. I'm doing a lot of gardening right now, and I'm paying very close attention to the positioning of the sun at my home and water and blah blah blah. Plants need it, and I think it's fun that in Genesis 1 you have plants that are here before the sun is even created. That's just kind of cool. But
There's
yeah,
light for the sun also.
Genesis, yeah, no doubt. Genesis 1:20, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, that the fowl may fly above the earth. So in Genesis 1, the fowl seems to be coming from water, whereas in Genesis 2, the fowl seems to be coming from the dirt.
Mhm.
So we have, I don't know if we want to call that a contradiction, but
Well,
we do.
is that well? Let me ask in that section there. Is that where it's talking about the earth that was coming forward from the waters and it's all lumped in together? Because if that's the case, then that would be the earth coming from the waters and the fowl coming from the earth. So essentially, the fowl would be coming from the water.
I'm afraid I don't really understand exactly the discrepancies between the two scenarios you've presented. And in
Okay.
Genesis, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. In Genesis 1, when it first talks about the land coming forward from the water.
Right.
Okay, so I can't see the screen, man. The letters are too small, so I can't follow along with you. So what I'm asking is that part with the bird in that same line, like coming straight from the earth coming forward from the water.
It seems to be further down the line. I mean, we've already got plants and everything like that. So we've already got water and land have been separated.
What's in? Well, what I'm asking is, in what's in verse 19 there?
Oh, my fault. And the evening and the morning were the first day. We just got over the great luminaries, the sun and the earth, and excuse me, the sun and the moon, and he's setting these two lights up in the sky. And right after that it says, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of the heaven.
Huh.
And then in 21 it says the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. So to me, it seems to me in Genesis 1 that the birds come from water, and in Genesis 2 the birds come from ground.
Oh, that is very interesting. All right, we'll go back to Genesis 2 and let's look at that in the ground. That's very,
Sure.
very interesting. I've never picked up on that, man. See,
That,
every time you go through, you find something new.
Genesis 2, plant before the field, the wind up water, God formed. Just trying to make sure I find the right spot here. We got the knowledge of good and evil, Delium, second river Gihon. Yeah, all right, Genesis 2:19, and out of the ground God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them.
All right, well, let's do this. What is the definition of bird there in 2:19? And then what is the definition of fowl that come out of the water? And let's see if it's two different words, and let's see if it's the same word. Because if not, we're looking at something strange right here. Discrepancy between 1 and 2.
What I've got for Genesis 2 is here. I'm going to press a button so it can pronounce it for us. So it's going to sound funny. Oaf. Okay. Oaf.
What is it?
Oaf is the word. I don't know why they got a voice that sounds like a Union County sheriff talking. Flying creatures, fowl, insects, birds, winged insects.
All right. Now, what's the in Genesis 1? What is the bird?
Let's go back and find out.
I mean, the definition of that bird right there was foul. So I'll just do the same thing.
All right, let the waters bring forth abundantly, great whales. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go foul. Sorry, if you're just listening and not watching, this might seem kind of boring, but we're learning here. It is oof.
Oof.
Creatures. Yeah, oof. Yeah, it's a oof. Flying creatures, fowl, insects, birds, winged insects. I mean, it's the same word.
That is very strange. All right.
I have to give credit where credit is due there. I didn't find that myself. A lot of things that I'll tell you when I found them myself, and I'll give the story behind it. Because most of the times when I find something, I remember where I was at and what I was doing when I found it. The
Yeah.
person who I remember clear as day pointing this out, that I ended up picking up the Bible and going through this and seeing, oh my gosh, I'd never noticed this before. Of all individuals it could have been, was Gary Wayne.
What was it?
Yeah, I heard Gary Wayne say something about the birds and dirt and birds in the water, and I was like, no way, how did I miss that? And when I went and checked him on it to see if he was telling the truth, it's like, wow.
Gary Wayne, well, Gary does a lot of the giant stuff in Genesis 6, and I got the Genesis 6 series that you're back here, and man, I'm telling you, and that's a tough read. It's very interesting, but man, Gary's like a thesaurus.
Yeah.
It's like he's like white Stephen A. Smith. They're like he'll just drop some words on you. But Gary has a lot of biblical knowledge. If anybody's watching, I don't agree with Gary on everything, and his prophecy is a little different. But he's very biblically sound. And that book is awesome, man. I know I've used it for years. It's like a reference book, man. The thing is heavy. It's 800, 900 pages, man. The thing is deep. But Gary Wayne will drop some random things on you, man, that you didn't notice, like and stuff you don't hear every day. And you're like, what? And then you look, oh my God, I
tell the truth.
And it's crazy. I know me and you both read a lot of books. We read sacred text, get on sacredtext.com and read different texts and talk about the Bible and watch different shows and podcasts. But it's every time I watch Gary, he's dropping something that nobody else has said or talked about. So big respect to Gary Wayne, man.
Yeah, big shout out to him, man. He's a baller. More discrepancies or differences that you can think of off the rip is that Adam is given he's told that every herb and seed and tree is for his own meat, and then afterwards Eve is created. But here in Genesis 1, you have the creation of male and female, and then they're told that you can have every fruit and tree yielding seed will be for meat. So there's there is,
man, it right there. People, I don't know how many times I've seen people put a bud of weed on a Bible and take a picture. It's like, dude, have some respect, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, have some respect, bro. It does have a seed, and I get it, but we're talking about eating here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, not even that. Even if you want to think it applies, man. But if you're going to use the Bible to justify your lifestyle, then you might not want to be so disrespectful.
Right.
Just saying, he is the creator of all things. You might want to just have a little reverence.
Right.
Sorry, that just every time I see it, as somebody who abused it my whole life, that still bothers me. Have some reverence,
Yeah, there needs to be a separation.
Know your place. Have some
Yeah.
reverence for the word of God, and especially if you're going to use it to justify something, you might want to have a little more respect. Sorry, I did a little tangent there, but that bothers me.
No, I'm with you, man, because it's out there. It's out there. And I get it. There's all sorts of medicinal properties and all sorts of things that are, hard to argue with and whatnot. But I am with you. I know a handful of people in my life who I know, had rolled a joint out of Bible paper before. And it's like, dude, what are you doing, bro? Why in the world would you do that? It's just,
I see it on X, I see it on Facebook where they'll have a little piece of like, come on, man, like it has this place or whatever. I know it helps a lot of people, but still at the same time, talk about the word of God. Don't.
Yeah. You grew up in the same household I did. There was a rule in the house, if you remember, the Bible wasn't allowed to touch the floor, and nothing was allowed to be put on top of the
On
Bible.
top of it. Yeah, you see my stack. I don't know if you can see my stack over here, but my Bible's in my lap. But this is how, before I cracked it open, it sits because it's the Bible on top. Everything else is underneath it because you don't
Yeah.
set that on top of the Bible. And it's not like it says it in the Bible, but it's just a
No.
thing about respect, man. You don't.
Right.
You have it's anything else is just a symbol for respect. You don't. You don't put anything on top of it. You don't cover it up.
Right.
And I don't know, man. Just to me, it seems like we need to get a little bit more back to like older ways of having
Respect.
for our creator. It's a wild idea, but just
Keep it sacred, man. It's a
Yeah.
sacred thing. It's not pharisaical. I don't even know what you'd call it. Legalistic, maybe. And no, I don't think God's gonna ban you to hell because you may have accidentally put the Bible on the floor or something on top of it. It's not a law, like you said, but there's still
let me
that's
just
how
put
we
it
were
this way.
raised.
I've been a fool for most of my life, and if I remember correctly, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. I don't want to be a dummy. So like, just let's have a little fear of God and let's say, oh, what would he think if I did this or anything else? And honestly, like, I don't have a verse to tell you why it's bad or anything, but to me, just looking at my spirit goes, man, that's a little disrespectful. Can we have a little fear of God and let's start to gain some wisdom before we head into World War III and apparently the apocalypse with the eclipse. So yeah, like let's just have a little baseline respect for our Creator here.
Just pulled up a bunch of verses there about what you quoted, fear of the Lord and wisdom. Yeah, I agree with you 110,000%.
But let's get back. I'm sorry, I took us on.
No, you're fine. We're on 6 Day Man versus 8 Day Man, and this is. I'm gonna go ahead and let you take the reins on this one, if you don't mind. I mean, I'll input whatever you want, but we've got on the 6th day, male and female made he them. In the very beginning of chapter 2, we've got everything's finished. God rests from his works. These are the generations, and then all of a sudden, God forms man out of the dust. People call this 8 Day Man. Who knows if it's really the 8th day, but I'm going to sit back and let you do what you do, and I'll try to cite anything that you quote from here. So take it away, man.
It seems that, and I don't want to get away from the bird thing, because honestly, it's bothering me. And I don't want anybody watching be like, oh, well, yeah, they just skipped the contradiction right there. I don't know, man. I've never noticed that before.
I don't think it's a contradiction. I think
I tell you what, I will. And let me just cover this real quick, because I'm not going to run from this. And we watch a lot of shows, and
right.
and people run from things. I'm not going to run from them. I will look over this week, and I will have my best guess. I'm not going to say that I'm going to have the total answer, but I will give you the best guess I have coming up on next week's show. So I that's something I'm not running from it. We will get back to it. Okay. Matter of fact, I'm going to put that in my handy dandy notebook right here.
While you do that, I'll just kind of speak on it a little bit. I've never viewed it as a contradiction. I am of the belief that the Bible has no contradictions. If it looks like one, there's just information that's missing. And when I say missing, it's not information missing from the Bible. It's missing from me. It's from my perspective and my knowledge database. There's something that's missing there. And I've never seen it as a problem that in one chapter they come from dirt and in another chapter they come from the water. To me, it just makes sense. I mean, we have 6th day creation and 8th day creation. And, and again, that's kind of a buzzword, 8th day creation. I don't think it really ever says that. And you'll speak to that in a minute, I'm sure. But when it comes to that, this is just a different moment. You have a moment where God seems to do these things in the Bible where there's something that's done and then there's something special. For instance, you have all these angels, you have all this heavenly bodies and all these things, but then there's one off to the side where in Hebrews it says, but unto which angel hath he said, thou art my son, today have I begotten thee. There's always something just a little special. The whole tabernacle, the whole temple was holy, but then you had one room that was holier than everything else. You know what I'm saying? There's always something that's just the special of specials. You know what I'm saying? And this seems like this was just a creation that took place in the Garden of Eden. That this was special. These were Adam's birds. This is Adam's cows. These are Adam's lions, like you said. And I'm of the belief that the trees were the same way. That yeah, he did make all of heaven and he did make all of earth, and then he rested from all of that. And then afterwards, this is when he was like, dude, check this out. I've watched this. I'm gonna make this thing called Eden, and I'm gonna put the trees in here, and it's gonna be all the most special thing. And that's just how I view it, man. I don't view it as a contradiction. I view it as an insight to God's personality, his character traits, and I think it's a good thing personally because I want to know more about him and what he's like and what he likes to do. And this seems like a character trait of his where he does make things, but then he makes something just a little bit top tier above that. And so that's just kind of my hot take on it. But what do I know?
I don't know, man. It's very interesting because I knew that it came from the ground. I picked that up, you know. I guess I recognize it because it's in the same fashion as Adam was made.
Right.
But you know, things being created out of the water is very interesting because you know we just I had a comment about the carbon life forms.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
yeah, then wouldn't that technically be hydrogen life forms?
I don't know. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I'm not sure.
it's formed out of the water, so that's H2O, so that's hydrogen
Right.
and oxygen.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But as far as the possible 6-day man versus 8-day man question, I don't see Adam and Eve, either one, being told to be fruitful and multiply.
Okay. Let me
and
follow you on this. Keep going.
And you know, you could take the 6-day creation as a summary account, and obviously it is in some aspects. But when in day 6, their man and woman were created. Man and woman, he created them. He told them to be fruitful and multiply. That doesn't happen in the Adam and Eve account. They were not told to be fruitful and multiply. Adam was created to tend the garden.
You're right.
So, and then Eve was given to him later as a companion. So, and I don't mean to say given as like an ownership, but she was given like a gift to guys for companionship. When day 6 is created, they're created man and woman at the same time and told to be fruitful and multiply. That is not what was told to happen. Well, it's not said that that's what was told to happen. Okay. Now, could you jump ahead to where Cain is exiled from his family?
Yeah. What is that for?
I'm so I closed the Bible to show that if we don't stack things on top of it.
Oh, you're cool.
So I'm out of there. Look up Land of Nod. That'll take you to the verse.
Genesis 4:16. Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden.
Okay.
Next verse.
Yeah.
Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he built a city and called the name of the city after his son Enoch.
Okay, this is the issue we have here. If you want to say day 6 man and say day 8 man, I've never even heard that term, but let's say Adam and Eve and day 6 man and woman. This is where you have an issue. When he leaves out, he gets a wife, he conceives Enoch, which is Enoch of Cain, not Enoch, 7th from Adam. There's 2 Enochs.
Yeah.
Also 2 Lamechs. Okay. So when he leaves out, Enoch's born. They build the city. They name it after Enoch, right? Why would you need a city if there wasn't people? What's in it? What's in a city? People. Why would you need a city unless you have a lot of people?
Right.
How would you build the city if you didn't have a lot of people? So there's other people. Okay. Adam and Eve didn't just have like 1,000 kids and they all just went super incest mode and just made all these people. Okay. That
Right.
didn't happen. That didn't happen. So for this section of Genesis to make any kind of sense at all, day 6 and the Adam and Eve have to be separate. Okay. In my eyes. And I'm almost totally sold on that. I don't want to do. I hate going all in on things that doesn't say specifically in the Bible. Like, hey, this is separate, but
Right.
it seems to be different. So, to me, and like I said, if I'm wrong, then I pray the Holy Spirit corrects me. But to me, it makes no sense, and I don't feel anything in my spirit when I say it's to correct me on it. And I pray that He does correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to spread misinformation, but
Right.
I don't see them being created at the same time, Adam and Eve. I don't see them being told to be fruitful and multiply. I don't see Adam and Eve having just a ton of kids and them all are, interbreeding and doing it at such a rate that they have enough people to fill a city and to build a city. Okay? There had to be, while this was going on, day 6 man and woman being fruitful and multiplying all over the world, or all over the region, at least enough to have enough people by the time that Cain is exiled and has his child to have enough people to build the city and for there to be a city anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So
no,
that's what leads me to believe. And there's other instances, but that's the main thing right now. We'll get to the Cain story later on, and man, that's a doozy. And there's a lot of theories out there, and we'll cover them. We talked a little bit about serpent seed, and I don't mean to make the serpent seed people mad. I mean, our dad is a serpent seed guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we've heard it and looked into it, and they have some points. They have some points. But Genesis 4:1 kind of shatters that a little, not a little bit, but a lot of it. But we can go in depth and cover that when we get there, and cover the day 6 more when we get to back to Genesis 4. But to me, it makes zero sense for any of that he just read about the city going into Nod, the land of Nod, having a child and having the city. None of that makes sense if day 6 is just Adam and Eve.
Right. No, it doesn't make sense. I was talking to a gentleman one day, and he had said, well, they had to have had daughters because, how else would Cain and Seth and them have had children or whatever. And, Genesis 5:4, which I've got up on the screen right now, does say that he begat sons and daughters.
Yeah, he had sons and daughters, and he had quite a few of them. I believe it was 11 total.
I couldn't tell you.
I could be off on that, but he had lots of kids, but not as much as we're saying. And granted, they did live 900 and something odd years. I believe Adam was 943,
930 or something like that. Yeah.
No, 930, I believe is right. 943, I believe is Methuselah, but yeah, because they have had a lot of kids, but enough to build a city.
Well, even if they did, I mean, I've pulled up here. What's that, Malachi? I thought it was Micah, but I guess it's Malachi 3:6. For I am the Lord and I change not. When we go through Deuteronomy and the law, we're going to look at
incest laws, right?
There's incest laws, and so, and then here's the argument I get. So the argument I get is, well, Moses and Jacob and all these people, they were married to their second cousin or their third cousin or blah blah blah. Here's the thing, that does happen, and I'm not going to sit here and say that God was pleased about that or like that or whatever, But I am also not going to say that if God has this law here, we already saw that God, he followed Sabbath, right? And so he follows his own laws. He's a do as I do, not a do as I say type of God. And so when he says I'm the Lord and I change not, if he has these laws that he follows, I don't think he's going to populate the earth through incest. Is he going to permit free will and allow people to do such a thing? Of course he would, because he's a pretty cool God, man, and he allows free will. So yeah, when you see places later on in Genesis where people are marrying their cousins or their stepsisters or whatever in the world, all that is permitted, because of free will, but it's still against the law. It's still not following his law. So I feel like God would not populate the earth going against his law. So to me, that's a gavel down. That's a nail in the coffin there, bro.
Yeah.
He's not gonna break his own law, especially to populate the earth. I mean, I don't know. I could go on about that for a second, but I feel like I've said enough there. But
No, you were going in the direction I was about to turn with it exactly. I'm glad you did that. It's exactly what I was about to say. So could I be wrong on that day 6 and day 8 are different? Yeah. But it would it would make a lot of sense for with everything else in the narrative for it to be Adam was a peculiar creation, but like I said, I could be wrong.
I think without the separation of day 6 and dude, it could have been 15. I don't know. I hear people say day 8 all the time, and like I get
It's just after the Sabbath, so
yeah, it's just after the Sabbath, man. Who knows how long that was? You have day 6 creation and then Adam and Eve creation. To me, having that there clears up a lot of contradiction, man. I mean, if you don't have that and you start looking at things and you start saying, well, so he's not cool with incest, but it's okay when he does it. It's okay, when he says it's cool. So one second he's got birds out of the air and the water, and then another second it's out of the ground. Your Bible contradicts itself within 2 chapters, bro. I'm not reading that stupid book.
Well, maybe it's not contradicting. Maybe because after Adam's created, doesn't he say after Adam that he forms birds from the ground? That's after Adam, right?
Yes, it has to be. I'm
in
pretty
the creation account, creatures are created before man.
Ooh, got him. Didn't even think of that. Yeah, let's see.
Maybe this is something completely different.
Give me just a second.
Because the fowl and all that come out of the waters there.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. These animals are a helpmeet for Adam.
Before man, and then in Genesis 2, you have Adam being created, and after that, these pulling birds and creatures out of the ground.
You're right. So honestly, now that you say it like that, there's a chance that Adam and Eve maybe I'm going crazy here. Pull me back down to earth if I am. Is there a chance that Adam and Eve were created before 6-day man?
Yeah.
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 Hey.
There's a chance.
Hey. Dude, I'm so glad we're doing this together, bro. This is fun.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, man.
No, I don't either.
See, it's wild because in the first 6 days, I've never noticed that either, man. Now that we're going through it, see, every time you go through it, man, you get something else because you have that's blowing my mind because the orders are flipped.
Right.
And also, the creation's coming from the waters, and then it's coming from the ground. We talked about last week about Rahab and the firmament. Yeah. And wasn't Rahab associated with the waters of being like a sea dragon?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's funny that I don't know, man. There's something here.
There certainly is.
We're barking up a tree, and there's a bird up there somewhere, man. But I just don't have the equipment to catch it right now.
I've never once had the thought before until just now that there's a chance that Adam and Eve were created before who you see being created in Genesis 1.
I said yes when you said it because I was thinking that same thing when I was running through it, but I'm not sure. So let me take that
Not
back.
sure either.
Yes, I'm not sure. I don't know. And this is something we're gonna have to dig into because this is something else, man. Because it completely flip flops it because you have the creation of creatures and then you have man on six, and then you have the creation of Adam. And then he's forming birds from the earth.
Right. Right.
See, but do you see though? That's even something else that may tie into day six man being different because I mean look at the order is different.
Yeah. It's
How like the creation is different because the birds are coming out of the water. You have the birds coming out of the ground, so there's something different there, man. It's not
oh
it's not the same.
no, it's not the same at all. There's something's going on there. Something's different.
Yeah,
And
something's definitely different.
it can't contradict. That's the thing. As a Christian, man, if your Bible starts to contradict itself, dude, you're in big doo doo. I tell people all the time, if you find a problem with the Bible, if you find contradictions, if you find lies or things that aren't true, if you find one, bro, all 66 books have lost all their credit. You know what I'm saying?
All
It
right,
all goes
let's do this then, man. For next week, let's go ahead. Let's do it. Let's get together at some point this week and
Okay.
let's look at the creation order and let's really look at this and see if we can bring to some people some clarity on this because I've never heard not one person, and I went to Christian school for years, went to all kinds of different denomination churches. I've watched and read more than I would like to admit. I've spent a lot of my life just looking into this and trying to find truth in this, and I've not heard not one person ever point this out. Well, we just discovered this was not planned. We just saw it.
Just two guys reading a book, man.
So let's go look into this and see what's going on here. Something's telling me in my spirit that we're going to find the answers to this in Isaiah and Job.
Job's got to be. Yeah, there's got to be something in Job.
Isaiah, I feel like Isaiah and Job, like there's something there that we need to that we can find. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling. I don't know why I feel that, but I mean, I guess we're talking about early on. Job has a lot of descriptions of things that are off and different than what seems to be after the flood. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh no, it's definitely after the flood," and I know that's the academic opinion, but I mean, the terminology used are the same ones used in Enoch, Sons of God, and that's only used in a pre-flood context. It seems like that we don't see that after the flood. It's only mentioned when it's talking about before the flood in Genesis and certain things like that. The sons of God, and when it talked about the sons of God seeing in creation, that's before the flood.
Right.
I don't know. It's almost like they lost that title. I don't know if they lost the title, but we don't see it used after the flood.
Yeah.
But there's certain things like that used in Job, and it describes the Leviathan, and it's like something that he sees all the time.
Yeah, like this is just something that happens. You know what I'm saying? That's Leviathan over there. Everybody knows who he's talking about.
Behemoth. It sounds like a dinosaur is what it sounds like. It is, and it's translated hippo in some newer translations with it, which is ridiculous.
That tiny little
the descriptors don't match. It's like it's insane. But so I feel like we can find the answers there. So let's do that. Let's go through and see what we can find about let's trace down the best we could possibilities of the city that Enoch and Cain built and where they could have gone there. Maybe look into possibility of the origin of some races. Maybe. And let's see if we can find any other evidence of maybe in any other commentaries by trusted sources that we could find that references these animals coming out of the water and being created first, and then man on the sixth day, and then Adam being created, and then it goes to the animals coming out of the ground. somebody else had to have caught that.
Somebody's got it. Yeah.
Somebody's got to. So, and let's see if they have any other resources that maybe we aren't thinking of firsthand. Be like, oh, okay, because it's out there. So it's out there. All these resources we talked about not having an excuse. So we don't have an excuse. We got to find this out. So the quest for truth is on, man. My backpack's packed, ready to ride down the road into the sunset and find out all the answers to the universe.
Dude, this is a great episode, bro. I'm looking forward to the next one. We'll be in touch all week.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's call it, man.
Sounds good. Night, everybody.